2025 has been an incredibly average to bad year for movies. There's been some stuff I've liked, but honestly not a huge amount, and there's been so much stuff that I couldn't even be bothered to go and watch. Looking at the worldwide and domestic box office, only two movies actually made $1 billion worldwide. At the US box office, nothing even broke $500 million. I think I'm not alone in feeling a sense of growing apathy about going to the cinema. I'll go through things in a descending order. First, the stuff I definitely recommend you see if you haven't, then the stuff that's just okay if you need something to watch, and then the disappointments. The disappointments were really disappointing as well. Okay, I guess my favourite movies of the year were, in no particular order, Weapons, The Naked Gun, and 28 Years Later. Weapons was probably the biggest surprise in terms of how much I enjoyed it. Generally, I'm not into horror, but this has got great characters. I think there's a really good balance in the script where it gets on with the story, but also takes time to explore the characters and sort of play with your expectations a bit. The horror elements are dealt with in a way that's internally consistent. It doesn't try to do too much. It's a pretty simple story that allows you to use your imagination a bit. In terms of performances, I liked Julia Garner and Amy Madigan. You could maybe shorten the whole movie by 10 minutes or so. Alden Ehrenreich was good as the policeman, but his storyline was a little bit slow. Now I've kind of thought about it for making this video, I guess Weapons was my favourite movie of 2025. If you only watch one thing, make it this. I also really enjoyed 28 Years Later. Despite being a zombie movie, it's actually really kind of gentle and more about the characters. It's a character piece more than anything, about how the survivors are finding different ways to process the apocalypse that they've lived through and different ways to live afterwards. The only problem was the last couple of minutes, which in terms of costumes, direction, general tone, was completely different from everything that came before. I guess these are story elements from the sequel, from the Bone Temple, that for whatever reason the filmmakers couldn't stop themselves including. It was a really bizarre choice that really knocked you out of the whole atmosphere of what the movie had been like. If they'd introduced what they introduce at the end, the Jimmies, and then told the whole story about them, that might have been a bit more understandable. Kind of introducing this thing in the last couple of minutes and then being like, the movie's over now, bye, that was kind of a bit weird. Despite all that, I definitely still think it's worth seeing. The Naked Gun was also a lot of fun. Nothing groundbreaking or original, but I thought it really captured the ridiculous tone of the Leslie Nielsen movies. So many throwaway jokes. My overall favourite sequence of any movie in the year was probably the snowman at Pamela Anderson's house. Liam Neeson's deadpan delivery was perfect. There was a couple of scenes that didn't quite land for me. The sheer amount, the sheer volume of jokes is such that that's probably inevitable. I look forward to a sequel, but I'm not sure it did well enough to get one. That's everything I would actively recommend. It's not much, I know. Now I'll talk about the stuff I didn't love. Stuff that would fill up a couple of hours, or if you're really just desperate to watch 2025 movies. First up would be Jurassic Park Rebirth. I almost put this in the recommends, but I can't really justify that when you could just watch the first movie, which is still significantly better. To be honest, there are plenty of flaws with this new Jurassic Park. It wastes many decent actors. Once you start pulling it apart, the plot kind of lacks logic, but honestly, it's an entertaining movie. It's fun. Summer movies should be fun. I think sometimes the desire to critique a movie and point out all its flaws is just counterproductive. Sometimes people should just allow themselves to enjoy stuff a bit more. It's silly, it's dumb, but it's a Jurassic Park movie. What are you expecting? I think the novel and the first movie covered the scientific and moral aspects of having a dinosaur park. All subsequent versions are cash grabs designed to be entertainment. If you approach it with that attitude, I think it's a decent enough watch. That's reflected in its performance at the box office, which was significantly better than my next choice, Superman. It's fine, it's okay, it's another James Gunn movie about a group of lovable misfits who learn to get along and defeat their enemies, like Suicide Squad, like Guardians of the Galaxy, exactly the same dynamic that Joss Whedon established with Buffy the Vampire Slayer 25 years ago. It's like this comedy misfit dynamic is the only thing that many modern filmmakers can do. Seems like the only thing James Gunn can do, and it's getting a bit tired. Like many other people, I would have preferred a Superman movie about Superman rather than just another James Gunn movie, but a decent James Gunn movie is decent enough. I thought it successfully balanced all the characters it introduced, the politics of the two foreign countries, the costuming and hairstyle choices that were used. They were kind of dodgy. Someone injected their own politics in there, I think. Did I enjoy it? Yes. Do I want to rewatch it? No. Am I looking forward to a sequel? I don't really care one way or the other. It's competent and unengaging and a disappointment. It's both worse and better than Man of Steel. Fantastic Four kind of hit me in the same way as Superman. I was surprised about how relatively downbeat it was. For example, the level of self-doubt they put Reed Richards through was surprising for what's supposed to be a summer movie. I remember some interesting character work with Ben and Johnny Storm. Fair play to the design team. The retro 1960s alternative universe looked absolutely brilliant. It passes a couple of hours perfectly well. It was forgettable. Take Julia Garner, for example. It's a few months since I've seen Weapons, but making this video, I had no problem remembering her character in that movie. As the Silver Surfer in Fantastic Four, I completely forgot what happened to her character, and honestly, most of the plot of the movie. That's not a good sign. F1 was overall an interesting watch. Fantastic racing scenes, the whole thing looked amazing. Great cast, Javier Bardem and Kerry Conlon held their own against Brad Pitt. It's a bit long, about 2.5 hours, and the story, the veteran driver versus the cocky youngster, everyone needs to save the team, is very cliche. There's a couple of moments on the track where the characters deliberately damage the cars, and I wonder if a Formula One driver would really risk that. But the driving scenes, they're mostly really well done. So F1 is directed by the guy who directed Top Gun Maverick, and it's just as exciting when the vehicles do their thing. The action scenes alone make it worth seeing at least once, maybe more. Beyond that, I kind of enjoyed Nobody 2. It did what it promised to do, but it's the kind of movie that's not quite worth a trip to the cinema. Nothing special, perfectly competent. Towards the end of the year, I mostly enjoyed Ballad of a Small Player. Although the ending is a bit too ambiguous, I still can't decide how I feel about House of Dynamite. On the one hand, I enjoyed how it played with the structure of the event. Basically, it's about a nuclear attack on the United States, and it retells the same events from 4 or 5 different viewpoints. I want to see movies that try out new things like different story structures. I don't really want to dismiss films which are interesting experiments. A lot of great performances in House of Dynamite. In particular, Rebecca Ferguson is a great actor. She makes things better just by turning up, I think. Idris Elba had a really good take on his role as well. On the flip side, the first time you go through the events of the movie, it's very tense and anxious. In subsequent retelling, that tension is obviously significantly less. Maybe House of Dynamite is one to watch either at least twice or not at all, perhaps. And finally, the Thursday Murder Club felt like a very culturally specific English-British murder mystery, worth seeing if you like that genre. Then we come to the disappointments. Easily the biggest disappointment of the year for me was Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. It was painfully long, painfully self-indulgent, a massive drop in quality compared to the previous films. Instead of telling its own story, it falls victim to trying to be a capstone to the whole franchise, cramming in a bunch of story threads from earlier movies. Some of these things work, like the character who returns from the first movie. Some of them were just extra unnecessary crap, like the Shea Wiggum revelation. To clarify, I think Shea Wiggum is a great actor. I just didn't like what they did with his character here. The middle part of the movie is actually pretty good. It's just the first half hour and the last half hour that spoiled it for me. I've rewatched the earlier movies more than once. Don't see myself watching Final Reckoning again. I've already discussed Fantastic Four, which was underwhelming, but basically okay. Now I'll cover the rest of the MCU. Thunderbolts, a frustrating watch. Some very good character work, particularly with John Walker and Sentry, although the cast does look a bit random, like it's just whoever was still under contract at Disney. Thunderbolts has a general air of post-Avengers Endgame weariness and trauma, which many reviewers pointed out would have made this a great concept to explore after Endgame. The universe has been saved. What do we do with the rest of our lives? Characters like Falcon and Hawkeye could have been involved. Thunderbolts has so much potential as an idea, but the execution and the timing, releasing it in 2025 and not 2020, really damages it. When I was watching it, it's like you can feel the potential of what could have been, despite its missteps. Overall, I think it's a curiosity rather than a catastrophe, and there were many things that I liked about it. Catastrophe is a good word for the next movie, Captain America: Brave New World. It's so inconsistent, so varying in tone. It's as though there are elements from 4 or 5 different movies stitched together. There's a great cast who are completely wasted. The Tim Blake Nelson storyline, the Giancarlo Esposito storyline feel completely disconnected from each other. I vaguely recall that Giancarlo Esposito is only in 3 or 4 scenes, but he acts like he's the main villain, which comes across very peculiar. To be fair, this movie had multiple reshoots, so maybe he was the main villain at one point. Honestly, this film is such a mess. Characters, plot ideas, they all get thrown in there. It would take hours to properly analyse, and it amounts to, what on earth did I just watch? At one point, I did fall asleep. Maybe those few minutes would make it all make sense, but I strongly doubt it. To top it all off, I'm not convinced Anthony Mackie is a leading man. He's great as Falcon, he was great in 8 Mile, he was unengaging in this, he was unengaging in Altered Carbon Season 2. Mackie works well with both Sebastian Stan and Chris Evans. He's good when he has someone to perform with, someone to play against. I see nothing in his body of work to suggest he can carry a movie like this. He doesn't have charisma like Robert Downey Jr. or Samuel L. Jackson. If you disagree, please point me in the direction of a movie or TV show where he gives a charismatic leading man performance. I would like to be wrong. So the MCU was average to poor. Another comic book movie that was a bit of a letdown was The Old Guard 2. There was some interesting expansion of the universe, but like the first movie, it tried to do too much too quickly. Like every other franchise nowadays, it wants to rush to its version of Endgame rather than patiently build the universe. The ending was another big cliffhanger. I couldn't really care about that much because I don't know the characters well enough. What else did I watch? Megan 2.0 was a predictable disappointment. There were flashes of the humour and cleverness of the first movie, didn't hit the heights that its predecessor could. The Accountant 2 got a bit too sappy and emotional for my liking. The Netflix Frankenstein was a bit too heavy on the narration. I had to turn it off after half an hour. That's it, really. It's been a downbeat year for movies, both creatively and financially. Mostly, I've enjoyed more serialized stuff. Black Mirror had an amazing season. The episode with Rashida Jones and Chris O'Dowd is an amazing piece of television. Grim and dark, but amazing television. I also liked Black Doves and Department Q. And finally, I kind of have a weakness for trash, like Sirens, which was fun and completely inconsequential. Let's hope 2026 is better. Thanks for watching.